I'm gonna reveal this totally weird chord progression that's in every movie musical from the legendary Disney Renaissance. We're talking The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Lion King, Pocahontas, Hunchback, Hercules, and Mulan. They all sneak in this badass key change that you wouldn't expect to hear in mainstream music. And then at the end, I'm gonna show you how I might work this magical key change into a non-Disney song. So let's jump in with everyone's favorite Disney love ballad, A Whole New World from Aladdin.
Now I'm in a whole new world with unbelievable sights.
Hear that? It's a key change from D major to F major. And that's weird for a number of reasons, which I'll explain in a moment. But first, let's rip through some Music Theory 101 and quickly define the term key change. Sometimes referred to as a modulation, a key change is when the tonal center of a piece of music changes. Listen again to the beginning of A Whole New World.
I can show you the world, shining, shimmering.
That there is a D major chord. And if I play a series of chords and resolve back to D major, it feels like we've arrived home. And that's because we're in the key of D. Now listen to Jasmine's verse.
Unbelievable sights.
The chord that feels like home is no longer D major, it's F major. But maybe you're thinking,
So what? It's a key change. Big deal. Doesn't that Beyonce song Love on Top change keys like 4 times?
well, yes, but Love on Top goes up only one step each key change, specifically one half step. C major to D flat major, that's a half step. D flat major to D major, that's a half step. D major to E flat major, that's a half step. And E flat major to E major, another half step. And this step up key change is the most common kind of key change. My Girl by The Temptations goes up a whole step. I Wanna Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston goes up a whole step. Back at One by Brian McKnight goes up a half step. They all go up one step. And you know what else all those songs have in common? The key change happens towards the end of the song, often right when the last chorus hits. Now let's go back to A Whole New World. Not only does the key change happen smack dab in the middle of the song, it happens right at the beginning of the verse, not the chorus. They sneaked it in there. And it's not a half step or a whole step up. Again, the distance between D major and F major is 3 half steps, also known as a minor third. And if you want to get really nerdy, you could say the song modulates to a chromatic mediant. The mediant is the third note of the scale, which in the case of D major is F sharp. But since we're going to F major, not F sharp, it's called a chromatic mediant. The guy who wrote the music for most of these Disney films was, of course, the great Alan Menken. So maybe we should call this key change the Menken modulation, or perhaps the Menken mediant? Maybe not. The truth is, even though this chord progression is pretty rare in mainstream music these days, it's been around for hundreds of years. Here's a piece by Beethoven from the late 1700s called Rage Over a Lost Penny. See if you can hear him modulate from E major to G major, which is a chromatic mediant key change, just like in A Whole New World. Actually, I lied. It's not exactly the same as A Whole New World because Beethoven's key change is more fleshed out. Here's what I mean. In A Whole New World, Menken goes directly from a D major chord to an F major chord. In Rage Over a Lost Penny, Beethoven goes from E major to A minor to D7 to G major. They both end up 3 half steps higher than where they started, but Beethoven takes the scenic route and Menken flies direct. Speaking of Beethoven, here's a quick side note. Check out the main theme from his 6th Symphony. Now, let's switch over to the opening number from the film Beauty and the Beast and listen to Belle's first line.
There goes the baker with his tray like always.
And with a little bit of movie magic, here's what the two pieces sound like mixed together.
There goes the baker with his tray like always.
Sounds like Menken had good taste. And if we jump a couple of minutes into the song, you can hear in the underscore that Menken modulation.
I'll borrow this one.
That one? But you've read it twice!
Well, it's my favorite. Far off places, daring.
He's going from C major to E flat major. And once again, Menken flies direct. There are no transition chords, and it works great. All right, on to example number 3. Here's Reflection from the movie Mulan. And even though this one's composed by Matthew Wilder, not Alan Menken, that same key change happens right at the beginning of the second verse, just like in A Whole New World. Check it out.
Can it be? I'm not meant to play this part. Now I see that if I were truly
Beautiful. Now, my question for you is, why is this example from Reflection different from the other Disney songs we've listened to thus far? You see, this time the chord progression is more fleshed out, like in the Beethoven piece. Instead of going from F sharp major directly to A major, there's an E7 chord in between. And that E7 sounds amazing because it works so well in both keys. In the key of F sharp major, E7 is the flat 7/7 chord, which, as scary as it sounds, is actually pretty common, especially in jazz. Now typically that flat 7/7 chord resolves back to the 1, like this. Nice, right? But that's not what happens in Reflection, and that's because we can also think of E7 as a 5 chord in the key of A major. In other words, the E7 can hang in both keys, which is why it works so well as a vehicle for pivoting from F sharp major to A major. It's actually called a pivot chord in music theory. The more you know. Anyway, I want to play for you one more Disney song that modulates to that chromatic mediant. And this one is actually my favorite example from the Disney Renaissance. But first, I have a confession to make. Throughout this video, I've been saying how rare this kind of chord progression is in mainstream music. And that's true if we're talking about today's mainstream music, which is, for the most part, pretty harmonically basic. But the Disney Renaissance kicked off in the late 80s, during which mainstream music was much more harmonically rich. These were the good old days when the Billboard charts were dominated by the likes of Chicago and David Foster and Whitney Houston, and their songs were chock full of adventurous chord progressions and key changes, including the Menken modulation. Check out this incredibly epic love ballad from 1984 off of Chicago 17, produced by David Foster, called Hard Habit to Break. It starts off in the key of F sharp major, and only 35 seconds in, modulates up a minor third to the key of A major to kick off the second verse, just like in A Whole New World.
And I found out a little too late. I was acting as if.
A few years later, in 1987, Whitney Houston released the song Didn't We Almost Have It All? And it modulates from G major to B flat major right in the middle of the chorus.
Loving you makes life worth living. Didn't we almost have it all?
Now, by no means am I accusing Alan Menken of plagiarizing Chicago or Whitney Houston. But I do think part of what makes the music from the Disney Renaissance so magical is that harmonic exploration, which was so prevalent in 80s and early 90s pop. Anyway, let's finish out with my favorite example of this enchanting key change to the chromatic mediant. I love this one because the key change happens not at the beginning of the last chorus, but right in the middle of it. So here's Circle of Life from The Lion King by Elton John and Hans Zimmer. Key change is from B flat major to D flat major. Of course, D flat is the chromatic mediant of B flat. That's up 3 half steps, also known as a minor third. And if we take a look at the exact chord progression, we've got an F major chord, which is the 5 in the key of B flat. And then we fly direct to a D flat major chord, which of course is the 1 in the key of D flat major. All this adds up to an incredibly uplifting key change, accompanied by an emotional crescendo in the percussion section, and of course, the glorious sunlight shining through the clouds right onto baby Simba. All right, last but not least, you know what time it is. It's time to steal that key change! So I'm gonna apply the Menken modulation to everyone's favorite song, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And as you can see, we've got a lot of chords in this reharmonization, but the part I want you to pay special attention to is the key change right there. We're going from C major to E flat major. That's up to the chromatic mediant. And I really want you to listen for this key change. Don't just rely on your eyes, use your ears and hear that harmonic shift. Here we go. if you want to play chords like that and make your music sound way more interesting and hip and soulful, you should definitely check out my course, Chord Theory for R&B Piano. It's my no BS approach to learning how to play ridiculously sick chords on the keys. I've packed in over 14 hours of content. It's literally everything I know about playing soulful chords and progressions on the keys. And I teach it in a way that's fun, easy to follow along, and most importantly, easy to apply to your playing right away. You can click the link on the screen or down below in the description to learn more about the course. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.